Welcome to lecture on Advanced Geotechnical Engineering course. So we are in module 7 on Geotechnical Physical Modeling, lecture number 10. So module 7, lecture 10 on Geotechnical Physical Modeling. So we have introduced ourselves to the requirement of the centrifuge based physical model testing. But in this particular lecture, we will try to bring out some relevance of centrifuge based physical modeling to geotechnical problems, especially when we take some selected problems in geotechnical engineering. We will try to review whether the centrifuge based physical modeling is warranted or not warranted. So we are aware now that the small scale physical modeling can be performed at 1G or NG field. So physical modeling at NG requires a geotechnical centrifuge to carry out model experiments. So in order to carry out the centrifuge based physical model test, we require a geotechnical centrifuge to induce high gravities. Now consider some few simple situations where physical modeling, especially at small scale at 1G, may be adequate, and others where small scale physical modeling at NG will be required. So where it is required, where it is not required, by taking some selected problems we can be reviewed. Now consider as a first example slopes in sand. So here in this particular figure, a typical slope which is formed with a dry sand is shown here, and the slope inclination of the sand is say beta and a certain height h. Now if we know that this phi is the friction angle, and this is the friction angle, the maximum friction angle whatever it can have for a stable condition is called angle of repose. So for beta greater than phi, that is for slope inclination greater than phi, the slope is unstable. That means that the slope takes a profile which is equivalent to that safe friction angle. So the slopes in sand are not stable at angles greater than the angle of repose phi, irrespective of the height of the slope. So whatever may be the slopes in sand are not stable at angles greater than the angle of repose, irrespective of the height of the slope. So for dry cohesionless sand, the stability criterion may be stated as beta as less than pi. For example, if the beta is less than phi, we can say that the stability of the slope can be ensured. Let us look how this can be explained by using tau sigma plot. So consider on the y axis tau and the x axis sigma, and here this is the failure envelope and this is the friction angle. So this is the friction angle whatever the soil can take, and let beta be the slope inclination. Now if you look into this, as long as beta less than phi, the slope will be stable. That is what actually we have been discussing. Suppose but beta equal to phi, that means that all points in this particular line will be in contact with the failure plane. So for beta less than phi, the tau is less than tau f. That means that for beta less than phi, you can see that for beta less than phi, whatever may be the sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3, whatever may be the sigmas, the tau will be always less than tau f. Tau f is the shear stress at failure, and tau f the shear stress at a particular sigma. So for beta equal to pi, then tau is equal to tau f. For beta is equal to phi, moment this line is intersects with this line joins with this line, then tau is equal to tau f. So for beta greater than phi, the tau is actually greater than tau f. So slope would have already failed at all depths. When tau greater than tau f, the slope would have already failed at all depths. So that means that slopes cannot be raised at an angle steeper than the friction angle, whether in small or full scale tests. So slopes cannot be raised at an angle steeper than the friction angle, whether in a small scale or in full scale when you do not use any reinforcement inclusions. So slopes in sands, when beta less than phi, you can say that here for all levels of sigma, tau will be less than tau f. Similarly, the slope is actually stable and independent of the depth of the slope. For beta less equal to phi, then tau will be equal to tau f, the slope is just stable, and for beta greater than phi, the tau is greater than tau f, the slope would have already failed at all depths. So slopes cannot be raised at an angle steeper than the friction angle, whether in small scale or in the full scale. So what we have understood when we have taken the slopes in sand is that it is irrespective of the height of the slope, as long as beta less than phi, as long as the beta is less than phi, the centrifuge model tests are actually not warranted, because even 2000 gravity or 3000 gravity, whatever the normal stress is actually induced, is independent of the depth. So if we are actually doing 1G model tests with the slope inclinations less than phi, then they hold good. Similarly, let us consider these slopes in clay, but before that let us look into the undrained stability analysis by Taylor's method. So from the Taylor's method actually has been deduced from the undrained slope stability analysis, where factor of safety is the lowest factor of safety obtained from the circular arc analysis. So from this we can actually write weight of the the portion of the soil which is involved within the failure surface is a function of gamma, the unit weight, and h, height of the slope, and geometry of the failure surface. So the geometry of the failure surface can be characterized by three angles which are called alpha, beta, and theta, and which are by rewriting one we can write that C by factor of safety is equal to, it is indicated as C suffix r is equal to gamma h into function of alpha, beta, theta, which is nothing but the so called the geometry of the surface is indicated like this. So Cr is the required cohesion to just maintain a stable slope, and function of B alpha, beta, theta is a pure number and designated as a stability number Ns. So this is actually the stability number which is put forward by the by Taylor in 1948. So Taylor's stability number is given as Ns is equal to Cr by gamma h. Now in order to get this for different the stability numbers, the Taylor actually has given Taylor's curves, wherein the Taylor stability number is actually on y axis, and this is for different slope inclinations. Let us see for beta is greater than 53 degrees, we can see that the is independent of the depth factor, and we can actually get different for different inclinations like 60 degrees the stability factor is about 0.191. So for 60 degrees you can see that the stability factor is about 0.191, and similarly for 90 degrees it is about for 90 degrees it is about 0.261, that is for the vertical cut. So 1 by 0.261 into C by gamma, which is nothing but 3.81 Cu by gamma, which is equivalent to the critical height of a slope at which is 4C by gamma. So by using this Taylor's curves, one can actually obtain the stability numbers, and for beta less than 53 degrees the stability number is found to depend upon the so called d by h depth factor, which is also indicated as small n. So for gentle slopes the critical surface goes below the toe and always restricted above the strong layer, hence it depends on its location. So for beta greater than 53 degrees the stability number is found to influence only on the slope inclination, and failure surface is assumed to pass through the toe of the slope. So all critical slip circles are passed through the toe. So this is because for such steep slopes the critical failure surface passes through the toe of the slope and does not go below the toe. So for a vertical cut beta is equal to 90 degrees and Ns is equal to 0.26 under short term condition with factor of safety is equal to 1 at for a critical height Hc, we get 3.85 into Cu by gamma. So this is actually obtained from Taylor's stability number. So in case of undrained condition either with slopes or with vertical cuts, by using this we can actually get. So why this is being shown is that this is actually used in designing some of the centrifuge model tests, actually particularly with slope inclinations which is actually greater than 53 degrees for showing the stability of a slope under undrained conditions. So this is in our example, if you are actually having d by h and beta which is less than say 53 degrees, then this is the chart which is required to be adopted. We can see that in that case there is a possibility that the slope surface actually passes through the below the base, so it is actually called base failure. So this is depth factor is given. For depth factor d by h is equal to 1, it can be seen that beta for beta greater than 53 n is equal to 0, that is this n is equal to 0. So that indicates that is independent of the slip circle, actually this n value is 0 indicates that this n value 0 indicates that the slope actually the failure surface passes through the toe of the slope. So that is what is given. NH is nothing but the distance from the toe of the slope, h is the height of the slope and d is the total height once it is given here. So for by keeping d by h and beta and n can be obtained, and for d by h is equal to 1, d by h is equal to 1 and beta greater than 53 degrees, we get n is equal to 0. So that indicates that the slope surface slip surface passes through the the toe of the slope. So after having taken this with the slopes in sand, we said that if beta less than 5, the slope can be raised to any height even at 1g or ng, and the stable slope angle is going to be the same. And in this case the actuating force is the body force due to gravity and the resting force is the shearing resistance due to friction. So in case of a slope in sand, what we said is that if a beta less than 5, the slope can be raised to any height even at 1g or ng, and the stable slope angle is going to be the same. In this case actuating force is the body force due to gravity and the resting force is the shearing resistance due to friction. So let us see with the introduction from slopes in clay, particularly with undrained analysis from the given by Taylor stability chart. Let us look into it how it can be reduced for slopes in clay. So consider a slope in clay where we have got Cu and gamma as the soil parameters. Gamma is the unit weight of the soil. Here in this slide the d is indicated as depth below the toe up to the film layer, and h is the height of the slope, beta is the slope inclination. So we know that the factor of safety is nothing but is a function of h, beta, Cu, gamma, d. By using either Buckingham's pi theorem or Rayleigh's Rayleigh's method, we can say that factor of safety is equal to beta function of beta d by h and Cu by gamma h. Then we said that for similarity between model and prototype, each and every pi term has to be identical. So in the process we discussed that the Cu by gamma has to be reduced by 1 by n times in order to if you are actually having a small scale model reduced by 1 by n times at normal gravity. In case if you are having a small scale model tested at gamma m is equal to n gamma p, that is enhanced gravities, then we say that the Cu by gamma need not be reduced and then automatically get reduced once gamma increases to gamma in model becomes n gamma. So but it ensures that the Cu in model and prototype are identical. So Cu in model and prototype identical physically means that the stress strain behavior of the soil is retained. So that ensures that there is a similarity between model and prototype. So this we have already discussed. So here it implies that in order to maintain the margin of the safety, same margin of safety, the model and prototype on the not only the geometry but also Cu by gamma h should be same. So if g can be increased by a scale factor n, that is what we have been talking. Cu by factor of safety rho gh is equal to function of beta into d by h. If you increase g, we reduce h, then the soil particles strength Cu and density rho can be kept unchanged. So based on Taylor's stability chart, which we have discussed it just now, the maximum slope height of the slope that is Hc at factor of safety is equal to 1 for beta is equal to 60 degrees is given by the stability factor is 0.191. So we can write Hc is equal to 1 by 0.191 into Cu by gamma. So this indicates that in order to attain critical height, the slope actually has to reach to this height, so that it will actually have a factor of safety equal to 1. Suppose if you are having a model slope of having hm is the model height, then the ratio of hc by hm will be very high, and then which will actually ensure that factor of safety will be very high. So the actuating force is the body force due to gravity, and the resisting force is the constant undrained cohesion. So in this case, the actuating force is the body force due to gravity, and the resisting force is the constant undrained cohesion. So here it is not possible to carry out small scale model tests at 1G on slope in clay, as the slope will fail only and when h reaches to hc. So what we have understood in this case, particularly with slopes in clay, is that based on Taylor's stability chart, the maximum slope stable height of the slope is at factor of safety 1 is for that beta is equal to 60 degrees. So the actuating force is the body force due to the gravity, and the resisting force is the constant undrained cohesion. So here the slope will only fail if h tends to equal to hc. If you are actually maintaining the slope prepared reduced by 1 by n times and kept in the laboratory, it will only tend to dry, because it has got very high factor of safety in the small physical dimensions. So here it actually says that the centrifuge model testing is actually warranted for understanding for a stability of a slope in undrained clay, and also there is a requirement that the Cu has to be maintained constant, and it actually clearly says that it is not possible to carry out the small scale model test at 1G on slope in clay, as the slope actually will only fail as h tends to hc. So let us see some typical the slope failures in a centrifuge. This is after Ruhr University Bochum. A front view of the slope before testing is actually shown here, and this is one of the traditional very earlier testing of a slope, which is actually with a kaolin clay. So you can see that once the slope is actually subjected to failure, you can see that the development of the slip surface here. So this is the formation of the slip surface, and the heaving portion can be seen here, the heave portion can be seen here, and the tension cracks formation can be seen here. So this is the slope which is actually formed with a saturated consolidated clay, and you can see that the tension cracks. So these are the earlier imprints which are actually used for distinguishing the occurrence of the failure phase. Nowadays the advancement of the techniques like particle based velocimetry or digital image correlation techniques allow you to look into even the formation of shear band thicknesses and the formation of the failure plane, and also status of the front elevation of the model before failure and at failure. So there is actually important information can be derived. So you can see that the classical the slip circle failure, which is actually shown here from the testing done at Ruhr University Bochum, Germany. So this is a typical undrained testing, which actually the slope model height of the slope is about 18 centimeters, that is the h is 18 centimeter. So what actually has happened is that moment the height the gravity level increased to 33 gravities, then you can see that the slope has actually undergone a slip circle failure, and this shows that the validity of the similitude under the undrained conditions. So this shows that the requirement of the centrifuge based physical model test to induce failure, and then here it means that the critical height of the slope is nothing but 33 into 180 mm. So that is equivalent height in meters is the critical height at, of the slope at this particular soil at failure. So this relationship between prototype and model heights at clay slopes at failure is shown here. So here HM is equal to 18 centimeter. It can be seen that the slope is actually found to fail at 33 gravities, which is actually shown here is about the height of about 6 meters. So these different heights of the slopes have been tested, and you can see that here these are the large centrifuge equipments were used, and here the small centrifuge equipments were used. So the errors due to some small centrifuge testing actually lead to some some discrepancies, but what can be seen is that when you have a large beam centrifuge, we can see that the consistency in results, the modeling of the models were found to speak well and indicate the performance of a critical height of a failure, whether it is at 5 centimeter or whether it is at 12 centimeter, whether it is 18 centimeter. You can see that the horizontal plateau can be obtained. So this is the prototype height in meters in y axis and model height in x axis. For example, here it shows that when model height is is somewhere say 18 centimeters, and if prototype height cannot be equivalent to that because this is the height at failure. So it actually has this is at factor of safety is equal to 1. So the merit of the large centrifuge also is shown in this particular slide. So after having seen 2 examples of slopes in sand, wherein we said that centrifuge model testing is not required as long as the sloping inclination is less than phi, that beta less than phi, and if the sloping inclination is actually greater than phi, we said that the slopes are tend to fail. But when we come to slopes in clay, particularly undrained conditions with phi is equal to 0, we said that the centrifuge model testing is warranted. And so let us try to look some 2 different distinct bearing capacity problems. One is the footings on sand. Let us say that consider a footing having width b is subjected to embedded at a depth of df, is subjected to a concentric load of q. So in the case of footings on sand, the bearing capacity in addition to friction angle depends upon the size of the footing. So let us look into this. These are the typical failure planes. You can see that this is the elastic wedge which is actually formed, and then these are the radial shear zones, and this is actually resistance generated in the embedded depth zone for above the base of the footing. So this inclination is about 45 minus 5 degrees, 45 minus 5 by 2, 45 minus pi by 2, and this size is the breadth of the footing, and this is the resistance which is actually derived to counter this movement. For example, when the footing load is applied and this block moves this side and this blocks move this side, and this is countered by the friction actually mobilized along the periphery of this failure surface. These are the failure surfaces, typical failure surface which are actually shown in this particular slide. So this is the effect of the embedded depth of a footing, that is nothing but the gamma df, that is confinement due to embedded depth. Now we can actually get for the footing on sand net ultimate bearing capacity, that is nothing but q ultimate minus gamma df is nothing but qd is equal to half gamma b n gamma plus gamma df into nq minus 1. So this is we have taken like a continuous footing. So wherein we have written that net ultimate bearing capacity is equal to qd is equal to half gamma b n gamma plus gamma df into nq minus 1. Now this is simplified by writing qd is equal to q n gamma by 2 plus q into nq minus 1 into df by b into b, the whole bracket is multiplied by b. So this implies that the wider the footing, the greater is the bearing capacity. So the wider is the footing, greater is the bearing capacity. Further, the bearing capacity of footing on sand is derived from 2 sources. One is from the frictional resistance due to weight of the sand below the level of the footing. Other one is the frictional resistance due to weight of the sand surrounding the surcharge or the backfill. That is due to this and due to all around the footing, particularly in this zone also. So one is resistance offered in this zone and resistance offered in this zone, that is what actually we are talking. So this implies that a study conducted at 1G does not help in predicting the bearing capacity in the prototype, because the smaller is the footing, then we have got the less is the ultimate bearing capacity. So when B is reduced by 1 by n times, 1 by n times, the B becomes small, so the bearing capacity also will be small. So this is also evident. We have discussed it that ultimate bearing capacity of a footing is found to function of several parameters, and we have said that Q by gamma B is equal to function of E and friction angle, sigma C by gamma B, that is the crushing strength of the grains, and the grain to grain cohesion, that is sigma G by gamma B, and Eg, that is elastic modulus of the grains, Eg by gamma B, and then Dg by B, that is the Dg is nothing but the average particle size to raise to ratio of average particle size to breadth of the footing B. Now, so we have said that footings on sand, because of the the requirement whatever we have discussed, in order to have the similarity, the centrifuge model testing is required, because where the Q ultimate is actually found to a function of QD, net ultimate bearing capacity is found to function of the size of the footing. Let us see in case of clay, undrained condition where phi u is equal to 0, and we have only the resistance from Cu, that is the shear strength of the soil, and weight of the wedge and shear strength of soil along the failure plane tends to resist failure. So you can see that the failure planes are distinctly different in case of a clay, but when you took it here in case of the sand, you can see that the failure plane, the elastic wedge is actually formed, and the failure plane is actually this portion is actually shifted vertically down. So this is because of the roughness and the friction of the friction caused by the material, that is the surrounding soil and that is the sandy soil, but in case of clay that is absent. So because of that you actually have the failure plane starts immediately from that, the elastic wedge formation will be non-existent. So you can see that this is the typical failure surface which is actually forms here. So for the footings on clay, the normal force across the surface of the sliding can produce no frictional shear resistance on account of phi u is equal to 0. So ultimate bearing capacity can be given by Qu is equal to CuNc plus gamma df. Then net ultimate bearing capacity can be obtained by Q suffix d is equal to CuNc plus gamma df minus gamma df. So it is actually a function of only the shear strength of soil and Nc. For long and continuous footings, we can write net ultimate bearing capacity is equal to 5.14 Cu, and where Nc is equal to 5.14 here. For rectangular footings, for having dimensions breadth and length, then we can write from Skempton 1951 as Qd is equal to 5.14 Cu into 1 plus 0.2 into df by b plus 1 plus 0.2 into b by l. So these are the depth factor and shape factors, which is nothing but 5.14 Cu, that is nothing but as this is a concentric load, the inclination factor is equal to 1. So 5.14 Cu into 1 plus 0.2 into df by b into 1 plus 0.2 into b by l. So this can be seen that in case of a saturated undrained clay, when we have, so even if you take tau versus sigma, the more circles actually will exhibit identical diameters. That means that is irrespective of the cell pressure we apply. It is whatever the the cell pressure we apply, it actually generates the corresponding sigma 1 such that the sigma 1 minus sigma 3 is constant. So that indicates that we actually get a horizontal failure envelope, and which is independent of sigma. So because of this particular using this particular logic, when we have got a saturated undrained clay, because as in case of undrained condition, as there is no volume change actually occurs, so the tau is equal to Cu, which is in case of a completely saturated and undrained condition. So in that situation, what actually indicates is that in reality, if you are actually having the similar bearing capacity problem testing on clay, it says that the centrifuge model testing is not really required, and 1G model testing, the small scale model testing is required. Here there is no term actually of the effect of the so called the breadth of the footing is independent of the size of the footing. So it means that as long as we maintain this constant cohesion and for the saturated undrained conditions, it actually appears that the centrifuge model testing is not warranted for footings on clay. So that is what actually has been described here. Here the shear strength is constant and equal to Cu, hence the 1G model tests are actually valid in this case, as the model size is not important and centrifuge experiments are warranted. Centrifuge model tests are not warranted. So let us take cantilever sheet pile walls in sand. Let us assume that we have got a retaining wall which is having a height, retaining height h, and d is the embedded depth, and this is the dredge surface. Now if you see that this particular ratio, if d is actually small and if d by h is actually say ensures, if d by h is small, then there is a possibility that instability comes into picture. So the wall will be stable if d is greater than alpha into h, where alpha is a function of friction angle phi, and where h is the height of the wall retaining the soil. So here in this case the actual actuating force is the body force due to gravity, and the resisting force is the shear resistance generated due to friction. So the scale of the model is not important, whether we do experiment at 1G or Ng, provided if you are able to mention that if you are able to maintain d greater than alpha h. So theoretically it actually appears that the centrifuge model tests are not required, but in the forthcoming slides we will actually look into that, that how the centrifuge model tests we show a different behavior. So here if you consider a cantilever sheet pile wall, so here also there are two types of sheet pile walls, one is very flexible and other one is say rigid sheet pile walls. In case of rigid sheet pile walls, what will happen is that the wall rotates about a certain point, that pivotal point above the toe, but in case if you are actually having very flexible sheet pile wall, there is a possibility that the wall undergoes a failure, buckling failure here, and undergoes permanent hinge formation can actually occur here, somewhere here, where that is the point where the maximum bending moment is generated. So theoretically for cantilever sheet pile walls in sand, it says that the centrifuge model tests are not warranted as long as d is greater than alpha h, where alpha is a function of friction angle phi. Now let us consider for stability of the wall, particularly if you are actually having clay. So in this case both on the dredging side, that is this is the dredge level and this is let us say a point A, and this is the d embedded depth, and here this is the retaining height, and here both actually locations we have clay. So let us look how the stability of the wall, this particular expression is obtained through a detailed explanation, wherein we can actually look here with for the same example, here the cantilever sheet pile wall in clay where phi is equal to 0 and with prevalent cohesion only. So here what actually happens is that the wall rotates about a toe, that is actually this point here, and this is the dredged surface and this is the retaining height, and this is actually the level at which up to which the tension cracks can occur. So Z0 is nothing but the depth of the tension cracks, and now let us see sigma A is equal to active earth pressure is equal to Ka sigma V minus 2C root Ka, but because of the phi is equal to 0, Ka is equal to 1 and Kp is equal to 1, okay, and the sigma P is equal to that passive earth pressure, because here the wall moves away from the backfill and here it actually moves towards the backfill here. So here the passive case actually arises. So sigma P is equal to Kp sigma V plus 2C root Kp. Now let us take pressure at level of point A. So here what we have is that gamma h, that is the so called the Ka gamma h, where Ka is equal to 1 with that gamma h minus 2C, and which I can write it like gamma h is equal to gamma h minus Qu, because Qu unconfined compressive strength of the soil is equal to 2C. So we can write gamma h minus 2C. So this ordinate at this point just above the dredge line, is gamma h minus 2c. Now consider the resultant of the passive and active pressure at any depth y below the dredge level, that is, so if this is the dredge level whatever we have said, and we can actually take below the dredge level, that is at y is equal to 0, it is at the dredge surface, that is at point A. So the net pressure is actually obtained as gamma v, that is nothing but which is nothing but this portion plus gamma v plus 2c, gamma v plus 2c is nothing but, because y we are actually measuring from this point, so Ka gamma v, Kp gamma v, so Kp gamma v, Kp is equal to 1, so gamma v plus 2c minus gamma h, that is plus gamma y. So h plus y is becomes, because this entire portion is under active case, okay, gamma h plus gamma y minus 2c, that is Ka gamma h minus 2c root Ka. So as Ka is equal to 1, we can write gamma h plus gamma y minus 2c. By simplification, the net pressure is nothing but 4c minus gamma h. This is at y is equal to 0, we also get at y is equal to 0, we get 4c minus gamma h. That means that 2Qu minus gamma h. Now by equating, by this is the net pressure diagram where we have got 4c minus gamma h acting over depth d, and gamma h minus 2c acting over this depth excluding the so called the tension crack depth. So at pressure, once tension crack actually occurs, then this portion of the pressure is relieved from the earth pressure. So for stability of the wall, we can obtain by comparing the pressure acting this side and pressure acting this side, net pressure, we can actually get 2Q by factor of safety should be equivalent to gamma h, should be equal or equal to gamma h. 2Q nothing but 4Cu, so 4Cu by factor of safety should be greater than or equal to gamma h. That is what is actually written here in the third slide here of module 7 and 11 lecture 10 is 4Cu by factor of safety greater than or equal to gamma h. So this is what actually we have used in explaining whether the centrifuge model tests are required or not, is by 4Cu by factor of safety greater than or equal to gamma h. So this is actually obtained from the net pressure diagram, which is active side and the passive side below the dredge level. So in this case the soil is saturated having constant cohesion. So it actually appears that here also you can see that Cu by gamma h actually term is coming. So like in slopes in clay, here also it implies that any experiment done under 1G will have to be under prototype condition, and the actuating force is again body force due to gravity, and resisting force is the shear strength due to undrained condition. So any experiment under 1G will have to be done under prototype conditions only. If you are actually doing a centrifuge model test with if you are actually doing a small scale physical model test at normal gravity, this implies that this is not realistic and may not represent the the equivalent full scale model in the field. So in conclusions, in the relevance of centrifuge based physical modeling, what we actually have did from the considering examples is that when the body force due to gravity is the only actuating force, the shearing resistance due to friction is the only resisting force, then 1G model test would be adequate for studying the phenomenon. That means that ignoring the dilutancy of soil, when the body force due to gravity is the only actuating force and the shearing resistance due to friction is the only resisting force, then 1G model test would be adequate for studying the phenomenon. When actuating force is an external force and not the body force due to gravity, then the resisting force is the constant undrained cohesion, then also 1G model test would be adequate. That is actually what we have said is the bearing capacity of the footings on clay. So in all other cases like slopes in clay and slope in the retaining wall in clay, what we said is that the centrifuge model based physical model tests are required. So in this particular the discussion of this lecture, what we have said is that for considering similar the simple geotechnical problems, we try to bring out the relevance of the centrifuge physical model testing. Then what we said is that like in agreement with whatever we have been discussing, if you are having footings resting on sand, it says that the centrifuge model testing is required. When you are actually having footings resting on clay, it says that the 1G model tests will stand good. And if we are actually having the cantilever sheet pile walls in clay, it says that the centrifuge model testing is warranted. And when you are actually having cantilever sheet pile walls in sand, it says that our analysis says that theoretically the centrifuge model tests are not warranted, because as long as D is greater than alpha H. So now this particular discussion about whether the centrifuge model tests are warranted, particularly for modeling of a cantilever sheet pile wall. Let us look into this with the tests which are actually have been done at IIT Bombay. So here the failure modes of cantilever sheet pile walls are given. So we have two typical failure modes. One is the wall failure, other one is the material failure. So in the case of the upper figure, where what actually happens is that the material failure, the soil failure occurs, the failure due to rotation about point A. So you can see that the wall undergoes a rotation and about a point A, that is the point of rotation. Then we have got active pressure and a passive pressure, and here this portion comes towards the passive zone and this is active zone. So this is the net pressure where where you have got active and then passive, and then here again passive and then active. But in case when you are actually having a failure due to formation of a plastic hinge, that is the material failure, material of the sheet pile wall, and if H is the height of the the soil above the dead surface D, then we can see that this is the active pressure and this is the passive pressure, and at this point this wall tries to undergo rotation and formation of a plastic hinge actually takes place here. So this particular issue was actually was modeled by using variable gravity method, and then also verified by using by numerical modeling. So here consider a cross section of a flexible retaining wall test setup, where the wall is actually instrumented with strain gauges basically to measure the bending moments. So the bending moments are actually obtained by pasting strain gauges and calibrating by applying the known loads, and once we actually get the, for each application of the load we will get the bending moment theoretically can be calculated, and for each application of the load the response of the strain gauges to the applied load can be obtained. So based on that, for each strain gauge a calibration factor of bending moment with volts can be, with output volts can be obtained. So the in the linear range if you are actually taking, and that is actually gives the calibration factor for the individual strain gauges. So once during the test, once it is actually subjected to let us say in this particular method, what we have done is that we have taken a plain strain container, we are having 76 centimeters in length and 20 centimeters in the breadth, and having retaining height of 21 centimeters, and 15 centimeters is the embedded depth, and the wall is 2 centimeter above the base of the above the base of the container. And what actually has been done is that you can see that LVDTs are used to measure the surface settlements, and LVDTs are used to measure the lateral movements, and these strain gauges are used to measure the bending moments during flight. So here the perspective view of the model prepared for mounted on the swinging basket of the large beam centrifuge facility available at IIT Bombay is shown here. The wall is modelled using a thin aluminum plate having 3 mm thickness, and the sand was actually fine sand, and which is having a average particle size of about 0.15 mm, and is a poorly graded sand, and which is placed at 55% relative density purposefully to induce large lateral earth pressures. And here what has been said is that in order to observe the formation of the rupture planes, thin colored sand lines were actually drawn both on the active side as well as towards the passive side also. So this is as it has been told that this particular method, the testing was actually adopted is the variable gravity level testing. So the model has been subjected to increased gravities, wherein this is actually this is at 1 gravity, and this picture actually obtained from a camera mounted in front of the model, so that it captures pictures of the desired area 1g, and this is at 20g, and this is at 30g and 35g. So you can see that as the gravity level is increased, though we are actually, though at each gravity, theoretically it actually says that the d by h ratio at 1g it is stable, but it does not mean that as 20g the same stability is actually ensured. So that is what actually in the previous discussion, when we have discussed about the relevance of centrifuge based physical modeling, we said that as long as d is greater than alpha times h, we can ensure that factor of safety. That is only valid theoretically, but in reality it also depends upon the the stiffness of the sheet pile wall, and in case of when you have got a some flexible sheet pile walls which are actually very weak in nature, then you can see that you have got a situation like the formation of a the plastic hinge, and then the development of the rupture lines can be seen very clearly here. So the close view of the picture at 35 gravities is actually shown here. So this actually shows that the wall actually has undergone a permanent deformations, and the bottom portion is not subjected to any movement, and it can be seen that, and this portion actually has undergone the multiple cut like slip planes, and this indicates the so called, when we take different lines, and at the top also this has been observed over the length the breadth of the container, because we have taken a plane strain container. So because of that the entire portion get shifted downwards like a step type deformations, and so this is one of the classical failure which actually observed for the deformation of a sheet pile wall embedded in sand with a very low stiff wall. So this is variation of the retained soil settlements with the distance from the back of the wall. So you can see that when at 20g, 30g, 35, 40, 50g, you can see that the settlements continue to increase. So these are the crest settlements, and these are the settlements away from the from the crest of the wall. So again, so as been told here, so this is actually from the front elevation, can be seen that, and this is the wall. So these are the step type deformations which are actually shown, and the close view of the wall with the Rankine rupture planes is actually shown here. So he can see that this one plane passing here and one plane passing here, and the plane actually finally culminates at this particular point here. So from the data which is actually obtained from strain gauges, and the bending moment is actually plotted. So you can see that the bending moments are found to increase with G level. So this is at 10G, 20G, 30G like that, and once we have dropped the gravity to to 1G, so there is a net bending moment which is actually shown here also. So you can see that with during once the centrifuge test actually reached beyond the gravity level up to 35G, so you can see that the sharpness of these curves tend to increase, and with the actually which actually happened because the wall has been subjected to a bending moment which is actually more than the plastic moment capacity of the wall. If that attains, actually there is a attenuation of plastic hinge takes place, that is what actually happened in this particular case. So here the same issue is actually compared with finite element analysis of the same problem with increasing gravity by using Svandyne software, wherein when you compare here, you can see that at this particular point the plastic moment capacity of a 3 mm thick wall made of aluminum having Eg, that is the E of aluminum about 72 gigapascals, which is actually obtained as the plastic moment capacity is about 326.67 Newton meter per meter. So it can clearly see that this particular point actually it has crossed that plastic moment capacity and went into or formation of a plastic hinge failure was obtained. In case of Fernandel method also you can see that the sharpening of the bending moment can be observed. So this is the deformation of the soil elements on the sheet pile walls at 35G. Basically you can see that here also the plastic hinge formation can be seen very clearly. So variation of the cumulative maximum bending moment with G level is actually plotted, and when you see that as with an increasing G level the bending moment is actually increasing. The same situation was also measured in the FEM, and this is actually level where the so called 326.6 Newton meter per meter, that is the plastic moment capacity. So you can definitely say that somewhere between 35 to 40, 40 to 45 the wall actually attained or the plastic hinge formation actually has taken place, inception has taken place and developed further. So this is what actually we have proved by using this. So you can see that the post investigations have actually revealed that the so called the plastic hinge actually formed 52 mm below the below the dredge line, and this is the 150 mm which is the depth. So you can see that this is actually point physically here at this point. So you can see that this is the point where the sharpening of the bending moment also occurred. So this is this is also correlated with one of the problem which actually happened in one of the project in one of the sites, wherein in order to have some diaphragm wall construction 7 meter behind this particular face of the wall, what actually has happened is that the wall was actually observed to deform at this level. The wall was actually observed to deflect about 0.5 meter also. When the post investigation analysis actually have been carried out, it has been found that the wall which is element which is used was having inadequate suction modulus, and that led to the formation of a plastic hinge. So this is actually the relevance of the particular practical problem what actually has been discussed, but the only difference is that in case of in this problem there is a dredge level and then occurrence of what is also there. So let us consider a typical failure study for a test at 40 G. So here a same container is actually used, wherein we actually have got a rigid retaining wall aluminum and a hinge is actually placed at this point. So this is 0.24 meter, at 40 G it will be equal to 9.6 meter, and this will be 0.4 meter, at 40 G it will be equal to 16 meters, and this is 0.36 meters, this is equal to about 14.4 meters. Entire depth of the container is about 0.41 meter, that is 16.4 meters at 40 G. So the base layer is actually having 0.06 meter into 40 is about 2.4 meter, and here this portion is actually fixed. In order to prevent the sand particles entering into the hinge, thin polythene sheets are actually placed here as shown in this figure. So what actually has been done is that the wall is actually propped initially with very high pressure, and the centrifugal gravity is increased from 1 G to 40 G. In order to prevent the passive mode of failure, a mechanical stopper was actually provided this side, so that the wall will not move towards the backfill. So here particularly we are interested in modeling the active mode of failure for a retaining wall. So once we wanted to model the active mode of failure, what actually has been done is that once we reach to that particular gravity, so this when we withdraw the pressure at this point to 0, then what will happen is that the wall tends to move away from the backfill. So this is clearly shown in the next slide with a GIF animation, which can actually shows that this is actually a picture taken by a camera at 40 gravities. So you can see that the pressure which is actually released when it attains in 40 G. So you can see that the formation of rupture planes. So this is the test which is actually we have done at 40 gravities, and where you can see that the failure surface actually moves occurs like this. So this is another typical example of the retaining wall mode of failure, particularly active state of failure, which actually can be is actually tested at IIT Bombay. So in this case, consider let us say that we wanted currently very recently in 2013 a in-flight support system was actually developed, wherein what we have is that, let us say we have got a reinforced soil wall or a soil nailed wall, or you have got a particular wall. So what we actually have is that we have got a wall support system which is attached to a frictionless bearings, and there is a mechanical stopper, and then a pneumatic cylinder is actually placed here. Let us say that we actually have got two ports, and one port allows to put pressure here, other port allows to put in the pressure in the reverse direction. So let us assume that initially we have got a P2 is applied, and the wall is actually held from coming toward this side by restraining with a force, adequate force, and here also the care has been taken that the wall will not move by putting a mechanical stopper towards the soil wall being tested. So let us look into this how this happens. Once we this is at 1G status. So once we go, we actually go to NG, that means that we have got an equilibrium or K0 condition is achieved by establishing a forces, equilibrium in forces because of this pressure applied, and because this wall is actually supported on these frictionless bearings, so the wall height, wall weight and all those things will not come into the picture here. The next level what we do is that we try to apply pressure P4 and remove the support, so that now this particular wall at say NG, if h by n is equal to is the wall height, and when this actually happens at NG, so its equivalent height is equal to h meters in the prototype. So let us look this in the the real demonstration, wherein we can see that a 10.8 meters of wall at 40 G, you can see that how the wall is undergoing deformation, because this particular technique allows one to test actually the movement of the central wall support system is also monitored by using you can see the LVDTs which are actually placed here, and they measure how much. So this actually moves by about 5 centimeters in a short duration. So with that what actually happens is that we can actually see that how the wall undergoes movement, and then this actually can have an impact on the the deformation behaviors and other aspects can be studied. So this is type of test which actually has been done by at IIT Bombay by developed in-flight wall support system at 40 G. So this is a typical some reinforced soil wall constructed with marginal backfill material, and where it is compacted at wet side of the backfill. So you can see that there is the tension cracks are actually formed, multiple number of tension cracks are formed, and which actually led to the excessive deformations of a wall at the top of the in the topmost zone. And this is so similar situation if the wall is actually there in the field at this one, then we can see that this type of deformations can actually happen at for a 10.8 meters wall. So in this particular lecture what we try to understand is that the relevance of the centrifuge based physical model testing we are trying to bring, and then based on that we actually also try to see some selected examples. So in this module, the geotechnical physical modeling, where we have seen that how small scale physical model testing at particularly carried out at high gravities is relevant to many of the geotechnical problems. And we also have brought out is that if you are actually having certain conditions like say footing resting on clay, there is a possibility that the 1G model testing, the small scale 1G model testing also holds good. So this is how the centrifuge based physical model testing is also applied for a number of geotechnical problems for studying subjected to different types of forces, which actually gives the the behavior which is actually close to the real full scale structure.